Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with Elex 2, and I am very excited to provide you with a review for this game. Right off the bat, let me be clear, I've never played any of the Gothic games, and I only played about 3 hours of Elex 1. So this review is from the viewpoint of someone who is really new to the way developer Piranha Bytes constructs their games, and honestly, their style is very different from what I am used to. Elex 2 is a science fantasy open world RPG, and while that phrase sounds weird coming out of my mouth, I think it absolutely fits this game. You are placed in the shoes of Jax, a man who saved the planet of Magdallan 6 years ago in the first Elex game. Now he has a son, and the planet is under threat once again from an invading alien force. After a brief story introduction, you are placed in the wide open world, where you can literally travel anywhere you choose. So the first noticeable difference between this game and other RPGs that you have played is the jetpack. You get it very early, and it immediately makes a big difference. The amount of verticality this game offers is very impressive. Whether you are scaling towers, flying on top of buildings, gliding across landscapes, or hovering above the ground to shoot at enemies, there's just a lot to love about what the jetpack offers you. It makes traveling around the world so much more enjoyable and adds a unique dynamic into the game. There are fast travel points if you care to make use of them, but honestly, flying around the world and enjoying the locales is very entertaining all throughout the game. The next major difference is how difficulty is handled in Elex 2. Of course, I am used to starting out weaker in RPGs and then slowly leveling up and getting more gear that fleshes out my character's combat capabilities. But Elex 2 is different in that you have full access to the entire world virtually right from the beginning, and nearly all the potential enemies will destroy you in less than 2 hits. Even Magdallan's equivalent to small vermin can absolutely wreck you. Honestly, I was probably about 12 hours into the game before I felt comfortable venturing out and fighting on my own. That doesn't mean you completely avoid dangerous situations. It means you figure out how to handle those situations without direct violence. Sometimes you can sneak, other times you can use nearby explosives, or maybe even a bit of persuasion. Also, the game does a great job of front-loading a lot of cool and interesting quests that do not require combat. I had heard about the difficulty in Piranha Bytes games before, and always thought I would hate playing them. I play games to experience great stories, not for a high degree of challenge. But after going through it, honestly, I feel like this was a very engrossing experience. Removing the option of focusing on combat in the beginning forces you to be more creative in how you deal with quests and engage more with the characters you meet throughout the world. By the time you are capable of regularly fighting enemies, you probably have joined a faction and made significant decisions about what type of personality Jax is going to have. I wouldn't want all my games to be like this, but I am glad a game like Elex 2 exists. The final element that I believe really distinguishes this game from others that I've played is the factions. There are 5 different factions spread across the planet, and the way they are handled is absolutely fantastic. The best gear is locked behind joining these groups, and each one lends itself towards a particular combat style, whether it be laser rifles, two-handed axes, grenade launchers, or fire and lightning magic. In addition, each faction has its own culture and overall outlook on life. There are no weak links among the 5, and all of them feel wholly different from each other. You are only allowed to join one, so it gives the game a ton of replay value. So with all this fantastic upside, I'm sure you're wondering about the downsides of the game. Let's start with the obvious. The game isn't particularly pretty to look at. I've seen quite a few people say they think it looks worse than Elex 1, which I believe is a stretch, but I don't think it's unfair to say more effort should have been spent modernizing the graphics in this game. It doesn't help that there are several cutscenes referencing Elex 1's story that are pulled directly from that game instead of getting a new coat of polish. So a game that already looks dated is interrupted several times with scenes from an even older game. Personally, I'm not particularly impressed with the combat. It's a great feeling once you are geared up enough to venture out on your own. There are a variety of enemies, and the art design for most of them is pretty solid. However, the enemy AI is very lacking. Sometimes you can kill an enemy right in front of another enemy with no reaction. Enemies don't display particularly good tactics, and most of them will engage you in the exact same way whether you are facing robots, animals, aliens, or humans. There's just very little variety here, and the unfortunate part is, as you get deeper into the game, Elex 2 has a lot of quests that require combat. While I always welcome having party members, I think in this game, they are a mixed bag. On the one hand, they are a very diverse group with different backgrounds, motivations, and factions that they closely align with. All of your companions will have a loyalty level that increases or decreases throughout the game based on responses you make in their presence. My issue is the majority of your companions are impressed by the same types of responses. Be conciliatory, don't side with the Albs, and don't choose violence. This really doesn't make sense to me. If I threaten to punch a person in the mouth, I don't expect a party member from the Outlaws to have a large drop in loyalty because of it. Basically, if you care about your companion's loyalty level, it felt like most of them pushed you to play a specific type of character, despite having several different party members to choose from. In addition, by the time you reach mid-game enemies, your companions do lackluster damage in combat, and there's no way to make them more effective. They'll run out to enemies and serve as great distractions, but won't actually take out any of your foes. This serves as a sharp contrast to NPCs you sometimes have to travel with, who do monster damage to random enemies. It seems like a strange design choice, since many of your party members are noted for having the background of exceptional combatants. With all that being said, I want to strongly reiterate, I had a fantastic time with this game. Learning about the different factions, connecting with party members, and developing your character is all handled very well. I am also a big fan of the adult setting. Everybody in this game cusses like a sailor, and it strongly feels like content that is not meant for children. There's multiple conversations about being a parent and what's right for your son, which also help to reinforce the more mature feel. In an era where it seems like all companies are trying to make their content family friendly and dumb down properties that are clearly meant to be adult, this is a welcome change. I want to take a moment to talk about the stability of this game. For the vast majority of my experience, there were no bugs, and I had no issues with quests whatsoever. I think this is very commendable for a game of this size, especially considering I've been a fan of Bethesda games for a very long time. That being said, there were a couple of issues I want to note. It took me 50 plus hours to finish the game, and in that time, I experienced over a dozen crashes. Sometimes it crashed in the same fight repeatedly, most especially if I was using the jetpack around a lot of enemies. I found staying on the ground during those fights helped sometimes, but there were plenty of crashes that occurred while I was on the ground. Also, one of my party members completely disappeared halfway through the game, never to return. I had her loyalty maxed and there was no in-game indication she would not be back, so my assumption is this was a bug. I haven't seen anyone else report something similar, so hopefully this issue was fixed in the full release. Again, besides those two notes, I had no issues. To wrap this up, playing Elex 2 was a great experience. Overall, I really enjoyed the time I spent with the game, and I would absolutely recommend it to other people. I hope all of you enjoyed this review. If you did, please leave me a like down below, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.